Hi guys, and welcome to my first Prehistoric Kingdom, let's not call it tutorial, let's call it tips and tricks video. And I'm saying first because I'm sure there will be a second, at least a second. But today I want to talk about everything I have to share of importance about working with terrain. And I'm going to talk to you about editing water, so you can create like these very deep, look at this, love it. These very deep, very steep water edges, because I'm pretty sure that you have been doing it wrong the entire time. And working with the terrain paints, so you can create these really realistic landscapes like this one and maybe this one. Don't look at the creek, don't look too closely. I deleted all of the rocks it had by accident. Now it looks like nothing. It looked like a real creek. Now it's just weird. But I'm here to show you the terrain paints I used, or to what effect I used them. By the way, this is my Miri's Park. I started this on a live stream and recorded everything that happened since. So this will be a speed building series on my channel. If you want to see what I did here and how I did it, stay tuned. But now, let's get straight to business. But first things first, this has nothing to do with terrain, but it's very important. I feel like since I've grown accustomed to do these first steps every time I load into a game, it has helped me a ton. So first I do this, I go to weather, I go from left to right. So this has just no meaning what I do first. You can just go the other way around. I click on sunny and click on the X so the game doesn't crash. Because if you don't do this, it will start raining in half an hour and continue raining for 3 hours, which is kind of nice, but it impairs the vision, and during building I don't like it that much, so I get rid of this. Then I go to align fences to slopes and check this box off. Not have them aligned to slopes helps with, for example, this fence. It's on the edge of the water, like right at the edge, and there will be some like this right here. These teeny tiny variations in the terrain. And if I have my fence aligned to the slopes, let's put it on this, it will look like this, which is ugly. Or like this, which is okay, but it's not what I want here. I want a straight fence. So I check this off, and it basically, you know, it gets way more tidy. Let's curve this to see what it does. See? So if you have like this tiniest, slightest variations in terrain, but just want to have a straight fence, you need to get rid of this little check here. Okay, next, what I do is this. I check off this grid thing. I think it's annoying. If I need a grid, I can turn it back on. And these two are very important because I don't want my stuff that I place to flatten terrain, and I don't want it to automatically remove any type of vegetation, because it also gets rid of the individually placed stuff. And that is, I mean, it happened to every one of us at one point, but that is really annoying. And then I go here to the landscaping thing and tick off this box, respect structures, because now I can, like, if I want to, have this entire structure be buried in land. So nothing will impair our, let's say, capabilities of editing the terrain, except for fences. Fences are their own thing. Even if you checked all of this stuff off, fences will always lock the terrain. So that is something you need to know. If you work with real fencing, the fence will lock your terrain, and if your terrain is too rough, you will have problems placing it. But it can come in handy. For example, I made this little creek. It exits here and goes down the slope, ends up in this larger body of water. And because our terrain tools, like the smallest brush size is still 5 meters, which is bigger than my bathroom. So this is still pretty huge. You can't do really, like, you can't do exact and very detailed work with it. So what I did to make my life easier is just create the slope smooth it out, and then I grab the fence to determine like the path I wanted my river to flow, my little creek. Let's say this is it. And because now on this perfect smooth slope, the terrain is locked in place, I just went in, and obviously I took more time. I did more than this, but I just basically went in. Let's do some smoothing. Okay, so it doesn't look this drastic. And obviously this is just quick and dirty to show you how I did it, how you can use this to your advantage. But ideally, you know, you would go in and let's use the smallest brush and add some differences, maybe smooth some of the edges. You keep your fence the entire time. Once you're done with that, you can delete it. And now what I did, and this is really the only thing I urge you to do concerning terrain brushes, is to use this. Make full use, please make full use of the intensity slider. And I mean it. Go from 100 to 5% because you have these ugly edges. Now I'm going over it with 5% to see if it does something, but it depends on like the amount of intensity you had before. 5% won't do anything right now, but I'm betting that 15% is already doing too much. So I'm going to 10% just to smooth out my lovely little thing here. I'm using the 10%. It's already a bit much for my taste. I wish there was like something between the 5 and the 10. And now you have like the perfect riverbed. Wow! And like really, this is the only thing I have to contribute concerning like terrain editing. I'm not going to tell you how to make mountains, how to make, I don't know, valleys and stuff, how to exactly work your terrain, because I feel like that is a thing of personal preference. But what I see a lot is like people having this intensity thing on the base thing the entire time, which is 50%, or some even turn it up to 100 and leave it there. And if you do this, you're really locking yourself out from the full potential this game has, and you're basically constraining yourself to terrain edit we have in Jurassic World Evolution 2. Because Jurassic World Evolution 2 doesn't have the intensity thing. It is locked to like one intensity. So everything you do will kind of look the same. Everything will have the same amount of slope. Everything will have the same amount of smoothing. You know, you can't really create subtle differences or drastic differences in terrain if you just stick to one intensity thing. Sometimes it's really necessary to just go down to 5 or 10%. That is all I have to say about these tools. Everyone has their own style and their own ideas about how to make it work and how it looks pretty. So I don't want to dictate anything. I just want to show you by heading right to my next topic, which is the water. So I want to have a body of water that has this shape. So what you guys usually do is, let's just start with 1 meter. Okay? So, because we want it to not be as deep at the edges. And then what you say, you want to have a really deep thing in the center. And you do this. And maybe you smooth it out with some not as deep water. But see what it does? You really don't get nice transitions. And if you want to add like deeper detail with a small brush, it won't work. Because the size of the brush actually matters. See, I have this at 6 meters, but my brush is just 10 meters, so it will only give me like, I don't know what this is, 1 meter, half a meter. So these tools are not that precise. You really can't do any like landscaping with it. And what also happens is, like, if you want to have a smooth edge, right? Let's go there and smooth it out. It always creates this weird little edge here. See this? How it slopes down. And sometimes you can't smooth like this little edge here. You can't smooth it out. I'm on 100% intensity, but there's just nothing that it won't budge. this little thing right here. And the reason this weird edge appears is because the way the game works. So what you did was telling your game where you want your water. And so it knows the water is not supposed to go farther than this. So if you start smoothing, the game will say, yeah, but girl, you told me to put water here. So I do what I can to contain it, which is this rim. And you can tell me to smooth it as much as you want, but you told me to not put water outside of this rim that I created for you, which is why this is not the ideal way to use the water tool. I want you to forget all about this depth slider as much as I urge you to use the intensity slider on this landscaping tab. I urge you to ignore this and do this instead. Grab my brush, I make it super big, right? And I just fill the entire thing and give it a good bleeding area. See, this is again the fence thing. Fence locks the terrain. Because what you can do now is, because you told the game, okay, in this area, I allow you to put water. So next, you go in with your terrain tools and put the water where you want it. With the terrain tools, don't get rid of the water, because if you use the delete water thing, remove water, you have the same situation as before. But we want to actually just keep this water here and cover it with ground and basically just scape our water with our terrain tools. You can do that. You can go as deep as you want. Let's just see how deep this thing got. And you can go even deeper. You can create all sorts of dramatic stuff underwater. You can smooth it out like a charm. See this? This is what I call a smooth edge. This, guys, this is it. No weird dipping, no weird, edges created. That's what I call a smooth water entrance. And the reason this works is because I told the game, if I tell you to smooth, there's room for more water. Just do it. Now, right now it's flickering like an idiot. It doesn't have to. But this is a smooth edge. And this is the only way you get a smooth edge. This is the only way you get dramatic, like terrain differences in your water. You can't do this with your water brush. And what you can do also is extend, adjust it by just using your terrain tools, because you gave yourself some room for error, and you can get these really, really steep edges in the water, outside of the water, by doing this. You can create little islands inside of the water, no problem. So really just use the water as a means of telling the game, like, this is my designated water area, and I want to have it look like this. And maybe have it be totally deep towards this end. Now I want to fan it out a little more. Now I want to bring it all around here. And then maybe really, really smooth it out. There you go. Perfect water, perfect edges. No weird stuff happening at the edges. You can even create like trenches. Just once you realized you can manipulate the terrain under the water thing, it's like a magical box opened that just gave you so many more possibilities. This is impossible to make with this. So yeah, this is how you actually use the water tool in this game. Also, fun fact, if you go to like the traversable area of an animal, slopes like this, like I don't know at which degree of incline it starts, but slopes like this are not traversable for animals. So if you have trouble with escaping animals, which I don't, I think traversable area is probably the next video I'll do. Oh, Emily, come on, I'll help you. Oh my god, I stuck the animals in there. My poor little animals. Yeah, they can't. They just won't. So if you have escaping animals, just do this around your enclosure. Or wait for my traversable area video that I think I need to do, because I don't have trouble with escaping animals, because I think I have understood as much as I need to make my animals stay within their enclosure. But this is a topic for another time. Today I'm here to talk about terrain stuff. We're done with the water now. And you could say maybe this is enough for one video, but I know that there will be an update that will like rework the entire coastal biome. We're going to get a coastal map, and I think we're going to get new terrain paints. But right now, the rock terrain paint of the coastal biome is the best to show you how to blend terrain paints in PK. Because I've heard people say you can't blend terrain textures in PK, which is just wrong. And I think this proves it is. You just need to know how they work. The reason is that it doesn't work like terrain textures in Jurassic World Evolution 2, for example, because what they do is just adjust the opacity of the texture and just lay them on top of each other, which creates a really unnatural looking result. For example, I don't like how the tropical biome in Jurassic World Evolution 2, if you mix sand and mud, dirt, to me it looks super ugly. Because it looks as if you had some dirt and someone sprinkled like a thin coat of sand on top of it. Who does that? And even if you did that, it wouldn't look like this. But it's pretty easy to sort of get this blend of textures because it just lays them on top of each other without any weird stuff that you see here. What you see here is that you have this beautiful rock texture. And in this texture, there are some little cracks and crevices that would be the lowest point of the texture. If it was 3D, it's not, but it pretends to be 3D. So what happens if I want to put sand on top of this rock, and I'm going down with my intensity because, again, I urge you to use this intensity slider. When I'm using terrain paint, I rarely go over 25%. I only use a 100% to sort of lay down my base texture, because I found out it helps if you figure out what your base texture is going to be. If your base texture is going to be sand, just put it first. If your base texture is rock, as it is here, just put it down at 100%. And then you draw in what would happen in nature. Okay, so we want sand on top of this. And I'm going down to let's go to 10%. What happens if you do this is that, as it would in nature, it fills up these little cracks and crevices until they're full. Because this is what would happen with wind, water, and all of this. The sand would settle in these little cracks, and only if they're full it will start blending. Of course you could say, yeah, but leaves would maybe settle on top of the rock. Yeah, they would, and they can. See, you can make it happen. It really is, the game really is there to grant your wishes. But you need to understand its rules. And these are its rules. It blends things like it would in reality. Same with the grass. Now I have the intensity way too high. The 25% is good for, this is how you sort of blend your textures into each other. If you really don't care about any of the stuff that I'm talking about, you go to 25%. Sometimes it creates these weird edges. I have not yet fully understood why some textures in combination do this, but if you want to have just this subtle coating of a different texture, you go to 25%, and I think the game will just give you this subtle this. Now we have grass with leaf litter, but obviously this won't help if you're working details, like create the sandy beach with just a slope of rock and the sand slowly transitioning up there, and have it gather like down here. This one has, let's count how many textures are in there. We have this gravel, clay, this sand, this sand, this sand, substrate. I think even this substrate. It has the dried grass This right here, this yellow stuff, is the dried grass, and it slowly transitions into more green grass. So this is achieved by really not going over 25%, using the smallest brush, and just finding out how these different textures work together. Let's use something else. Let's use this gravel. See how the edges are like already like super smooth, right? So the grass and all the stuff that is growing here would like slowly try to make its way to conquer this gravelly texture. So it has these teeny tiny bits of grass. Okay, let's check out the snow. What will snow do? Same, it just gathers in the lowest spots until they're filled. These coarser parts and bits, they will stay visible until, you know, you tell the game to, come on, I mean it, cover it. And it might give you this weird looking, you might say weird looking thing, because it doesn't do the opacity thing. So you need to sort of change your way of thinking. You won't achieve what you want to achieve if you're working this like Jurassic World Evolution. 2 paints, because this is just not how it works. Never. This is never how it works. Ooh. Well, okay. It doesn't, and it apparently also it depends on which type of texture you use. Okay, so when it comes to what I found, if you mix like dry textures, like this desert and grassland are both very dry biomes. If you mix these with very wet textures like mud or the sand from the wetlands, look at it. It is obviously a wet texture. This weird little rim will appear. This sand, I think, is supposed to be wet desert sand, so it creates weird things. It doesn't create these weird things if you mix it with just sand that is not wet. So I guess this is not supposed to be a wet sand. Yeah, I think it was the wet sand from the wetland biome that did these weird things. See, it does it. Yeah, it's the wet textures against dry textures that create this weird thing. And to be honest, I don't know how to fix it. All I know is that you can blend these. Because see the wet sand, it is, let's put it on top of this again. Yeah, you can't bring it back. You just need to find out. And that is obviously, I won't try this with every possible texture there is because there are too many. There are 40 textures. Are there? Yeah, there are 40 textures. So this won't be a guide to which textures blend without creating this weird little thing. You have to test this for yourself. I just wanted to explain that you need to know how these paints interact with each other. See, it created this weird little thing because there is a valley here in the texture and it's going to fill them up first. And this is really how you need to work. And it will get you really realistic results, as I think I can prove by showing you this one again, and maybe this, but this is just 2 types of sand. But here I have clay here, grass, all kinds of substrate, even some rock, pebbles, sand, and I think, you know, in terms of realism, it's pretty good. So I hope this helped. If you have any questions concerning the water and the terrain texture stuff, don't be shy, put them in the comments. Maybe I have some tips for you. But for now, I thank you for watching. If this helped, leave it a like, please. And I see you next time. Bye-bye, guys. Have fun with blending terrain textures and creating extraordinary water features. Bye.